part 5 of how and why the settler colony of Israel became the vegan capital of the world. Make sure to go back and watch previous videos to understand the role of the Israeli government in using animal rights as part of their propaganda and the media's contribution, as well as international vegan influencers in vegan washing Israel's crimes in order to drive more investments into the settler colony's food tech industry. This video's main focus will be on the Israeli government and top leaders in using their tech developments in the vegan industry to gain legitimacy on a global stage, which ultimately helps attract more investments into its economy. Between the years 2020 to 2024, Israel was working on using its developments in the meat alternative sector to solidify their legitimacy on a global stage and attract investments. And here are some receipts. The Israeli branch of the Good Food Institute created a diplomatic toolkit to present Israeli alternative protein technology as an asset, and they say it could be used to support Israeli diplomacy globally. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs created 2 videos to highlight Israeli companies that are working on these products, most of which have been funded by the Israeli Innovation Authority that we mentioned before. And in these videos, spoken in English of course, they highlight Israeli technology as a solution to the climate crisis. These videos were published on the ministry's official social media channels and across 7 different Israeli embassy accounts, reaching a combined follower count of nearly 7 million people. Some of these companies include Aleph Farms, which we spoke about before regarding their complicity in the genocide in Gaza and the oppression of Palestinians. Another one is called Future Meat Technologies, now rebranded to Believer Meats, which is also complicit in the occupation of Palestinian territories, as they were founded and are licensed through the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, located on occupied Palestinian territories in the West Bank. The university also supported its warrior students during the 2014 aggression on Gaza, giving them special scholarship funds and donations to assist the soldiers. They also offered campus buildings for military bases, and they provide academic training for soldiers. One more company that should be noted that were part of these videos is Redefine Meat, which was also funded through the Israeli Innovation Authority and donated over 3 tons of vegan food to the Israeli soldiers during their genocide in Gaza. Again, if this isn't vegan washing, I don't know what is. It turns out that the Israel Innovation Authority didn't just start funding Israeli companies later on in this vegan revolution. They've been behind it from the start. It is reported by the Good Food Institute that between 2011, just when Gary Yourofsky's speech went viral across the settler colony, and 2021, the Israeli Innovation Authority granted $24 million across the country to aid in establishing alternative protein startups. They've been prepping ahead and pushing for this internal propaganda to make veganism more mainstream in so-called Israel in order to attract more investments in its food tech industry in the future. And in 2021, the Israeli Embassy to the United Nations held an alternative protein event at the United Nations headquarters, with attendees being international delegates to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization and the World Food Programme. Again, this is a clear example of how they're using a global stage to highlight their food tech industry and show their developments in alternative protein in order to attract more investments. Now, how do the Israeli leaders take part of this? Well, in 2020, when Aleph Farms introduced its lab-grown meat, Netanyahu was there alongside his animal rights advisor, Tal Gilboa, where he was named the first head of state to try lab-grown meat. And when he took a bite into this cultivated steak, he said, "It's delicious and guilt-free." Gilboa said, "Here we are in a place where technology can outperform most of our work." Again, emphasizing that they are leaders in the food tech industry and that they're able to be a light onto the nations. Another example is in 2021 when the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, went to COP26 to support and promote Believer Meats, which we just spoke about, and he became the first president to try cultivated meat. He said, "It is imperative that we take advantage of the international stage to present the extensive Israeli climate tech and solutions we can offer globally in climate innovation and developments of alternatives to animal protein." And the Israeli Minister of Environmental Protection, who was with him, said, "This technology will not only change Israel, but will contribute to the whole world." And in August of 2021, the Israeli Prime Minister at the time, Naftali Bennett, was meeting with the US President, Genocide Joe, to discuss climate technology solutions. And he said, Israel must help the world fight the climate crisis using the country's technological expertise, especially in alternative proteins. Again, these are just three examples where the Israeli leaders are using alternative protein technology to gain diplomacy and legitimization, as well as draw investments into its economy. The Israeli branch of the Good Food Institute used these as an opportunity to invite multinational corporations and investors to establish research and development and innovation centers in Israel for successful business and a better world. They attributed some of these successes to Israel's unique ecosystem that would allow them to leverage Israeli technology, which is used to test weapons on Palestinians. Even in 2024, in the midst of the genocide in Gaza, the Israeli branch of the Good Food Institute said, the Israeli government plays a pivotal role in this endeavor by offering substantial backing for alternative proteins. Again, they are giving diplomacy, or trying to, in order to provide legitimacy on a global stage by portraying Israel as a leader in food tech and the one that's best suited to solve the climate crisis. And earlier in 2024, Israel became the first country to approve the sale of lab grown meat, which opens up more opportunities for global investments in this sector. By the way, this was already happening in the prior years. In 2022, the UAE co-led a round of funding for Aleph Farms for 105 million US dollars. By the way, this wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for the normalization of the UAE under the Abraham Accords. But they've been trying to keep it on the down low because some of the articles that are published have zero mentions of Israel in it. And what's even more shameful is that even now, in 2025, the UAE held its annual Global Food Week and they featured Believer Meats, who have a partnership with a UAE company, and that means that that UAE company is using technology licensed by an Israeli institution that is built on internationally recognized illegally occupied Palestinian territory. In 2022, the founder of the Israeli organization Vegan Friendly, Omri Paz, was on an interview by I-24 News, the Israeli news channel in English, where they state, Israel proves itself a vegan capital of the world. And he talks about his intentions to go globally with his organization in the UK and in the US, which ultimately highlights Israeli vegan brands internationally, most of whom are complicit in the oppression of Palestinians. And don't forget that Vegan Friendly in 2023, during the genocide in Gaza, fundraised and donated vegan food to the Israeli soldiers as they are carrying out their strikes on Palestinians. They called that campaign Veganism at the Front, Call to Arms to Support Our Soldiers. This is pretty much the entire timeline of how and why the settler colony of Israel became the vegan capital of the world. But I want to highlight that as vegans, we have a responsibility to reject Israel's vegan washing of its crimes against Palestinians, and why it's important for us to speak up against the exploitation of the animal rights movement by the Zionist entity, as well as what we can and should be doing to not contribute to the oppression of Palestinians through vegan Israeli products. And I'll be covering that in the final part of this series.